including the gunman, are dead. Another 20 people are in the hospital, some critically injured. Bombs have been found inside the school. Authorities say some of them were set up as booby traps. One did explode, but no one was injured. Authorities have not removed the bodies of the victims yet because of the danger of the explosives and the need to preserve the evidence.
Police say the two teens behind today's violence were on a suicide mission. They are identified tonight as Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. Other students described them as outcasts. They opened fire on students and teachers alike before taking their own lives. They are, according to police, responsible for the bombs that have been left behind in the school. In a video production class, fellow students say the two made a movie about guns.
Nightline will have much more coming up on the tragedy near Denver today. Ted Copper will have that. Channel 2 News will have much more on the investigation tomorrow.
And that's it for Channel 2 News at 11. Thanks for being with us. Good night.
Fisher Broadcasting.
April 20th, 1999. Again, the scenes are familiar.
We saw the black guns come out of the trench coats, and that's when we knew it was real. And then when we heard the bullets whiz by us, we knew that we better get out of there.
But never on this scale. Up to 25 dead, nearly as many wounded.
Then they started yelling again for everyone to get down, and then we knew that we were sitting ducks there.
And again, the questions of who and why.
They were known as the trench coat mafia at our school, and the jocks, ridiculed them quite a bit. When they first walked in, they said if there's any jocks in here, they're dead.
I just think that tonight we need to focus on the families that lost their kids, on the children that are wounded, on the grieving of the community.
And I hope that we can find solace by sharing our grief together.
And now, Littleton. Tonight, a community and the nation more. From ABC News, this is Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel. Think about this. In 4 weeks of air action against Serbian targets in Yugoslavia and Kosovo, the U.S. military has yet to suffer a single casualty. In a few hours of mindless violence today at a suburban high school outside Denver, 2 kids are believed to have killed and wounded about 50 of their classmates and then killed themselves. As we all begin to process what happened and begin to wonder why, consider this. According to one of the students from Columbine High School, who'll be joining us in a few minutes, the shooters may have belonged to a group that was known as the Trench Coat Mafia. There were about 8 or 10 of them who wore black trench coats to school every day, no matter what the weather, and some of them used to draw swastikas on their body. It may or may not be relevant, but today, April 20th, would have been Adolf Hitler's 110th birthday. When you're trying to explain why high school students would blow away 25 or more of their classmates, wounding a similar number, one theory seems to be as good as the next. So what did happen today in Littleton, Colorado, this place that most of us had never heard of until today? Here's ABC correspondent Judy Muller.
Shortly after 11:15 Mountain Time, the first signs of trouble. Outside Columbine High School, in the parking lot, students hear the sound of gunfire.
And we looked over and we saw some guys peeking around the corner with guns. And we saw them shoot 3 people in the parking lot. And we knew it was real. Yeah.
They saw the gunman throw grenades or pipe bombs on top of the school roof. A number of witnesses recognized the two as members of a group called the Trench Coat Mafia.
Yeah, they wear trench coats every day to school, and wear makeup and paint their nails and stuff. They're just everyone kind of thinks of them as different, and they always just hang out with themselves only, kind of associate themselves with death and violence.
They always wear black clothing or dark clothing, glasses, berets. They get made fun of a lot. A lot of kids like them. Yeah.
They get made fun of a lot.
Yeah, by other students sometimes.
11:30, the fire alarm was sounded. School teacher Paula Reed hustled her students out.
As I got outside the building, right outside the building, teachers and administrators were yelling to the kids, get them out of here, get them out of here, get them all the way to the park.
At first, she said, there was no panic.
Kids started to run out of the gymnasium saying there's people in there with guns. But the general reaction from most of the people around me was, yeah, right, because there are no guns to speak of at Columbine. At least that's our perception of things.
But many students were trapped inside the building. For the next hour and a half, the two gunmen made their lives hell as they roamed the hallways, classrooms, and cafeteria, firing in every direction.
I heard people pray for their husbands, their children, you name it. And at that point, these guys were killing just to kill.
Senior Nick Foss witnessed the horror before he managed to escape.
I've never seen so many dead people in my life, and some of my friends did. You know, I've never seen someone's face shot off in front of me. It's not cool, not pretty. I can't get out of my head.
Some of the worst carnage was in the library.
There was a guy at a table right next to me and her, and they just shot him, and then walked away, and then he was just sitting there in a pool of blood.
We all got under the desk, and then they just started coming in the library and opening fire and shooting off bombs.
By noon, police SWAT teams had surrounded the building. They pulled students out whenever and however they could. One student who'd been wounded was pulled through a second-floor window. At a time when students would normally be finishing their lunch and returning to class, they were still fleeing, many taking refuge in nearby houses. The scene was chaos as paramedics tried to treat the wounded and parents tried to locate their children. Some of them were reunited at a nearby school. All the while, inside the Columbine High School, the shooting continued. At 12:15, the first of the wounded were taken to nearby hospitals. At approximately 1 p.m., nearly 1.5 hours after the shooting began, the SWAT team entered. Dozens of students ran out with their hands in the air. Police were wary that the gunmen might try to escape by blending in with the crowd. As the afternoon wore on, the wait became excruciating for those parents who had still had no word of their children. Many of them gathered here at a local public library near the school, where lists had been posted of names of children who had called in to let their parents know they were all right. For those who could not find the name on the list they were looking for, it was a very, very long day. Between 2 and 4 p.m., the scene in this neighborhood was one of extremes. Joy when families were reunited, and despair when the minutes ticked by with no news. Every now and then, an official would read off an updated list of those found. Then, at 4:16 p.m., the sheriff held a news briefing to deliver the news everyone feared.
Well, we've transported initially 14 to local area hospitals with gunshot wounds, and we've had, what I understand, 25 additional victims that were deceased.
7 p.m. Parents, students, teachers, and neighbors gather at the Light of the World Catholic Church, just a few blocks from the high school. And throughout this stunned community, people were repeating the same thing that too many other communities have said in recent years.
I just am thinking that this does not happen at our school, and that I'm going to wake up and this is going to be over. Because, God, not at Columbine, you know? It happens in some other school somewhere else. It doesn't happen here.
Now that it has happened here, the gruesome but all too familiar denouement begins. The search for a motivation, the calls for tighter gun control, the counseling sessions at school, and the endless, endless grief. In Denver, I'm Judy Muller for Nightline.
Tomorrow morning's Denver Post identifies the two suspects as 18-year-old Eric Harris and 17-year-old Dylan Klebold. Both reportedly died of self-inflicted gunshot wounds. Joining us now from outside the scene of today's tragedy, John Stone, the Jefferson County Sheriff. Rough day, huh, Sheriff?
It was a rough day. Sad day for Colorado.
A sad day for the country. What is it that you can tell us about the situation inside that building now? Because I gather you still haven't been able to remove the bodies.
That's correct. We have an unsafe situation due to the amount of bombs we found in the school. We removed 12 of them out of there so far. We're running into booby traps at different locations due to the late hour here right now, and we're going to secure the site for the night. We can't even go in and remove bodies or do any of that identification because of the massive amount of ordnance that we run into in the building. It makes it an unsafe situation right now.
When you talk about bombs, what are you talking about? Pipe bombs or grenades?
I haven't seen any of the devices yet, but a lot of them are handmade devices. And but we've exploded several of them. We found them both outside in the parking lot of the school, outside of the school area, and so far a dozen of them in the school.
When you find them, and you've referred to booby traps, in what way are they set up to explode?
Well, we found one device on one of the suspect's cars that was set to detonate the gas tank as our officers were trying to secure it. We've got ordnance on the bodies of the suspects that needs to be deactivated before we can move those bodies.
So in other words, if I hear you correctly, before they killed themselves, they booby-trapped their own bodies?
That there's evidence of some of that on of his bodies.
I did say before they killed themselves, and I think I have heard that, but I'd like to hear you confirm it. Are you satisfied that they committed suicide, or did they shoot one another?
We suspect that they probably killed themselves.
What is, have you been inside the building yourself, or has that been?
No, the only people we've got in the building were the SWAT units that went in and did the initial sweep, which took several hours. We've had 5 SWAT teams operating in there, including Denver Police Department, the FBI's, our SWAT team, Arapahoe County. And it took us a considerable amount of time to do it because of the things we were running into we weren't expecting, like those bombs. We had explosions in the school upon our initial entry. We had our officers, the school resource officer, and one of our motorcycle units in the initial entry exchanged gunfire with one of the suspects. It was a very unsafe situation here.
Has anybody been hurt by any of the bomb explosions, or have in fact any of the bombs exploded?
We have had bomb explosions in the school, and as far as the scene, we have not been able to examine the bodies well enough to know whether they were hit by bomb fragments or by weapons fire, but there was considerable weapons fire as well as the bombs detonated in the school.
You've obviously got, Sheriff, a really terrible human tragedy on your hands there, but particularly tonight in the sense that all the parents whose children have not yet been identified, they can't know yet. I mean, they don't know for sure one way or the other. What's being done to help these folks through the night?
Well, we've had all of the victims' families and things over at one of the neighboring schools right now, and we've been briefing them as much as we possibly can on what's going on. We want to get this identification process done as soon as possible, but we want to do it safely. We don't need any more tragedies out here.
No, absolutely not. But when I say there's still this level of uncertainty, in other words, you don't know for sure who is dead in there, and all you've been able to do is, in a sense, identify people by process of elimination, I guess.
That's correct.
And are the parents, I don't even know what word to use. Are they satisfied with that? Are they able to put up with that?
Well, I think because of all that we've encountered here tonight and the fact that there's been people here who have been detonating the bombs, the community considers this a very real threat. We had another bomb that apparently went off as a diversion in another part of this neighborhood down here prior to our arrival. That could have been maybe to draw cars or something over to that scene.
You've had a couple of other arrests, I gather. Is it just because you feel these are people who were associated with the suspects, or that they themselves may be suspected of participating?
Well, we had three individuals we picked up that were dressed paramilitary, trying to get onto the school scene at the same time this was going on. From the information we gathered, they are associated with these suspects, but whether they were part of this plot today still is to be determined. There's a lot of investigation to be done in this.
They're under arrest at the moment, or are they being held at the moment?
They were being held earlier. I haven't had a chance to check on the status of what exactly is going on with them right now.
All right, Sheriff Stone, it's good of you to have taken the time. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
When we come back, we'll meet 3 of the students who witnessed today's horrific events.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Buick.
Remember life in the fast lane? I do. First you meet, then you get married, and things slow down.
Yeah, right.
To help you keep up, drive the supercharged Regal GS Sport Sedan. Plenty of room, standard traction control, and the most power in its class. And now, Regal comes with something that'll make it even easier to drive. Regal by Buick, official car of the supercharged family.
How far must you go to improve wholesome, creamy, nutritious Dannon yogurt? Actually, only as far as the bottom. To see Dannon has already gone overboard to bring you peaches simply bursting with flavor. Dannon, made with fruit picked at the peak of delicious.
Spectracide grass and weed killer works in 24 hours. The other brand takes a little longer. Actually, a lot longer. Spectracide works in hours, not days. That's why weeds can't hide from Spectracide.
On 2020 Wednesday, the latest on the Colorado high school shootings. How could it happen again? The stories behind the tragedy on 2020 Wednesday.
Mervyn's has all your name brand swimwear on sale this week, 10 to 30% off. Mervyn's, California. Big brands, small prices.
Right now at Denny's, when you order a Team Denny's burger and a Coke, you could win $25,000 and a trip for 4 to the Coca-Cola 600, plus a chance to meet one of the drivers. So come into Denny's for your own pit stop. Our enormous Team Denny's burgers, starting at $3.99. Good food and lots of it. So start your engines and drive on over.
The two students believed to have done the shooting clearly belonged to a larger group. Tonight, Tim Foreman reports a lot of questions are being asked about the students with the black coats.
While SWAT teams were still trying to find the gunman inside the school, police outside were stopping several other students who were allegedly trying to get in. Witnesses say those students who were detained were also members of the gang known as the Trenchcoat Mafia. Nicole and Amanda Wiggin knew the gang members.
They just kind of walk around with big black trench coats and
play war. They play war in the school all the time.
What do you mean they play war?
They just pretend that they're in war. They usually have like just regular like small play guns or whatever and pretend that they're playing.
Columbine students say the gang was comprised of about a dozen teenagers. They were known to talk about violence and death and often threaten people, taking a particular dislike to minorities and athletes. But almost no one took the threat seriously.
You were just joking at the start of the year. I'd always say that they'd do that, but I was just joking. I never actually thought they'd really do it.
Indeed, some students say even when gang members bragged about getting new guns and made a video about their guns in a class, they were largely considered a joke. The two students believed to be the gunmen were teased and ridiculed. Teachers say in that regard, this school was like any other.
Yeah, I could say that there would be some kids who feel very disassociated from the school, and that's hard for kids, especially at this age. But boy, if you had asked me yesterday if any of our kids would come in and shoot people.
Police say they never heard of the gang before today.
You know, I talked to some school officials, and they informed me that they hadn't had any problems with these two, and that there were no real disciplinary problems at all with them.
Tonight, police are searching the homes of the two young men they say were the gunmen, hoping to find some clue as to what triggered this extraordinary and terrible burst of violence.
There has been so much confusion here today, it's difficult to tell what all happened, but one young girl I spoke to said during the shooting, she heard the gunmen shouting at some of their victims as loud as they could, "This is what you get for the way you've treated us." Ted?
Tom, I gather you know this neighborhood particularly well.
Yeah, Ted, I live just a few miles away from here. I know a lot of the people who work in the school. I know some of the students who went to school there. I don't know any of the victims. But this is a neighborhood that's always had a very active school community. It's a park where people play with their kids right behind the school. It's been the kind of place that an awful lot of people move to, in fact, thinking that they were getting away from this kind of violence in other areas. And people are very, very shocked and stunned tonight.
Can you think of any acts of violence that have taken place there at all over the past year or so?
None that were large enough that they would attract particular community interest. The high schools down here certainly have had some problems, as any high schools would in large areas or big high schools.
But there haven't been any particular violent episodes right at that high school. There were a couple of shootings at a mall not terribly far from there over the past, I'd say, year and a half. But those seem to be isolated incidents, seem to involve different gang members as gang shootings seem to go. But nothing at the high school itself. And in fact, that's part of what has stunned so many people here, is they thought it was a good high school without these kind of problems. And of course, it was a good high school. Nobody expected this to happen there.
Tom Foreman, thanks very much. Joining us now live, 3 of the students who attend Columbine High School, all sophomores. Joshua Lapp was in the library doing his math homework when the shooting began. Chris Wisher and Jake Apodaca were in the back of the school in the parking lot when they heard what they thought were gunshots. So, guys, let me begin with the 2 of you. Tell me when you realized they were gunshots. Either one of you.
Yeah, well, we were in back of the school, and at first we heard what sounded like some kind of fireworks or firecrackers going off. So we just didn't think much of it. And we came back up closer to the school, and we looked up, and we heard shots going everywhere. And we noticed a kid in a trench coat and a kid in a white shirt. The kid in the trench coat had a gun drawn, and he was shooting just everywhere. It was some kind of shotgun. The kid in the white was just standing there. And I think there was another one with a gun somewhere else, because I could hear shots from a different kind of gun coming from somewhere else. We saw 3 people get shot, and we didn't really know what was going on. Then we looked up, and one of the gunmen turned towards us and started shooting. So we just fell down to the ground and just sat there for a while, covering our heads. And once we knew that they were done shooting, we stood back up, and we saw the kid in the white on the side of the school start throwing some kind of bomb on top of the school. It was a grenade or some kind of bomb. And at that time, we just ran.
Jake, do you know either of these kids? I mean, even now, when you hear their names, do you know who they are? Do those names mean anything to you?
I knew one of the kids, the kid that was shooting at us. I recognized him, and I've seen him around school a lot, but I wasn't like friends with him or anything.
What do you know about him? Tell me, as a matter of fact, tell me what you know about the trench coat mafia. I mean, did anybody take those kids seriously?
Not really. Everybody just kind of makes fun of them a lot, and they're just the kids that stick out a lot and kind of the freaks of the school.
Josh, did you know any of those kids?
I'd seen him in the halls before. I'd never really talked with them. I've seen him in the halls, and that's about it.
Now, you know, the group, the gang, when I say did anybody take him seriously, I mean, what was the assumption about them? I hear that some of them were actually, in fact, the 2 guys who appear to have done this were known as really smart guys. Did you know anything about them?
They were both very smart computer-wise. They were very intelligent towards computers. Other than that, people kind of stayed away from them because they didn't know what they'd do. A lot of times they'd react in the halls to somebody saying hi to them and just get up in their face and get mad at them. It was for nothing. It was just, nobody really knew what to expect from them.
I'd like to hear a little more about that, but we're just going to take a short break. We'll be back with more from the students in a moment.
There are some colors you can only find in the country. Deep forest green, rich cranberry red, and these were the inspiration for the Country Colors collection, crafted in America only by Ethan Allen. A surprisingly affordable way to bring a fresh look to your home, whether it's a farmhouse or a penthouse. Hurry in. Ethan Allen's spring sale is on now.
There are many ways you can get stuck with a flat tire. But not with this tire. Even with no air pressure, you keep driving to safety. The Goodyear AquaSteel Run Flat. It could be the difference between getting stuck and getting there. only from Goodyear.
11 blue-clad warriors stand on the brink of battle and ask themselves, where is the other team?
Reuben, on a Sunday afternoon.
Nothing helps you kick back at the end of the day like Tostitos chips and salsa.
I can't imagine anything.
We do suggest you actually wait till the end of the day.
He's a fine dancer, too.
Dig in, kick back with new Hint of Lime Tostitos.
Kumbaya.
Michael, I say, Michael, would you like to hear a bird call?
Sure, Foghorn.
With MCI, a bird can call for just 5 cents a minute every Sunday and 10 cents a minute all week long. Now that, my friend, is a beautiful bird call.
The bird thinks he's a comedian.
Now stop stealing my material.
Call 1-800-Sundays to sign up.
Don't get me riled.
Coming up, Bill on the NRA.
They hide behind rights, and they hide behind the Second Amendment, and they hide behind we need guns.
Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher coming up.
In automotive circles, it's quite an accomplishment. We've taken practically everything you've ever wanted in a luxury car and given it another look. The Lincoln Town Car. And as if one modern miracle wasn't enough, we've also given it this. But hurry to your Lincoln Mercury dealer now, because while the look is here to stay, your $4,500 in special dealer savings could be gone by tomorrow. Lincoln Town Car. What a luxury car should be.
And we're back with Joshua Lapp, Chris Wisher, and Jake Apodaca, 3 students at Columbine High School. Josh, I'd like to go back to you and back to the issue of the kids were really smart, you say, with computers. So smart, I gather, that sometimes even the teachers would come to them?
Yeah, from what I knew, they would have trouble in the tech lab with computers, and sometimes they would call several students from what we called the Trenchcoat Mafia in to see what they thought of the situation.
Let me take you back to earlier today, because you were, I gather, right in the middle of it, and at one point quite literally came face to face with these 2 guys. Just talk about what led up to that, and how and why you think you made it out of there.
Why I made it out of there, I just say that it was the luck of where I sat, or the luck of where God sat me. The reason why they did it, I have no clue, other than maybe because they were ridiculed so much by what we considered the jocks.
No, I wanted you to explain, if you would, Josh, because you were right in the middle of what happened. Just explain what did happen.
Everybody was sitting there doing their homework. A teacher that was on hall duty came running in, yelling that there was students with guns. The time that she said that, I didn't believe her. I thought it was some kind of prank or some sort of thing like that. So I started to go out into the hall. I didn't make it very far before I heard gunshot and decided that that wasn't very smart. So I ran and hid back underneath my desk, as the teacher had told us.
They came into the classroom then?
It was the library, and it took them about 5 minutes to get into the library while we were underneath the desk.
Now, there was one African-American kid that I gather they seemed to seek out.
Yeah, they were over close to the windows that saw the outside, and there was a row of desks. While they were over there, they said, look, there's that little nigger. 3 shots were fired. Then after that, one of them said, is he dead? There was a pause, and the other one said, yes, he's dead.
And then?
And then they just proceeded on going around the library, looking under desks, and shooting the people that are underneath the desk.
Now, did you have the sense that they were looking for anyone in particular?
Well, when they first came in, they said, if all the jocks would stand up. And then nobody stood up, and they said, if you're a jock, you're dead. If you're in here, you're dead. So I took that as they were seeking for jocks. And then when they said what they said about the African-American kid, it just seemed to me that they were after a certain sort of people.
Now, Chris, I gather that you at one time or another had seen some of these kids, the trenchcoat mafia kids, with swastikas on their bodies. Talk about that for a minute. Tattoos, or they just sort of drew them on their bodies?
I didn't really see any tattooed on them. They would draw it on their clothes a lot and their bodies. They would just draw it. I haven't seen any tattoos.
I don't know if you heard me mention at the top of the program, today's Adolf Hitler's birthday. You think that has anything whatsoever? I mean, you think that means anything to these guys?
I don't know.
Jake, I've also heard that some kids seem to feel there is something about the date 4/20, April 20. Can you help me with that? What's that about?
Well, 420 is another word for marijuana, and it's the 4th month and the 20th day, so they just kind of take that as kind of a holiday, I guess.
When you say a holiday, and who's they? Who are you talking about?
Well, like everybody that smokes weed or does drugs, I guess.
Any reason to believe that these kids were into drugs?
Well, if you'd look at them, I'd guess you could say they did. They kind of look like they do.
Guys, it's been a terrible day for all of you, I know, and I know you've had to go through this story a number of times, so thank you. I apologize for putting that.
On a situation like today, when they put the call out, we had 6 trauma surgeons there within about 25 minutes.
And how quickly were you able to take care of everyone? Almost immediately then, I take it.
As they came in the door, they were seen by a team of an emergency room physician, a trauma surgeon, and we had several neurosurgeons there and several orthopedic surgeons there at the time already.
Now, you've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 25 people who were injured. How many different hospitals are there in the region, and how are the decisions made as to where to take them?
I can't tell you how many there are in the region. I really don't know.
Well, maybe that's a good question. Maybe that's a good question to put to Mr. Pessimir. Do you know?
Okay.
Well, actually, we transported, I believe, about 22 patients from the scene of the incident to 7 different hospitals throughout the Metro Denver area.
How do you make the decision as to where to take them?
Well, actually, we had an EMS officer that coordinated that decision with the local hospitals, and the local hospitals did a very good job of talking to each other to determine how many patients and how critical of a patient they could take. So that all went very smoothly in coordination with the EMS people on the scene and the 7 different hospitals that were used to transport patients to.
You and your unit were actually not just among the first, you were the first on the scene, weren't you?
Well, one of our rescue units was, I believe, was the first fire or EMS unit on the scene. They actually transported, I believe it was 3 of the initial patients that they found at the scene, I believe one of which was critical and 2 were serious, even as the police were exchanging gunfire with the shooters inside the building.
What did they think they were going to? I mean, what was the first word they got?
Well, the initial dispatch came in as a dispatch to shots fired and explosions at Columbine High School. So I think they had a pretty good idea of what they were getting into, and of course police units were at the scene at the same time they were.
Now, at a time like that, do your folks wait on the outside until the police bring out whoever is injured, or do they actually go into the building?
Well, they don't go into the building. In fact, that was one of our biggest concerns throughout the course of this incident, was coordinating the operations of the police SWAT teams with our fire and EMS personnel to make sure that the fire department personnel and the paramedics were always safe. And we tried to do that as much as we could. But initially, during the very first stages of the incident, there were 3 students who desperately needed help, and our paramedic rescue crews went in and got them out.
As best you know, and then I'll go back to Dr. Pfeiffer for a last word, but as best you know, are any of the people who are in the hospital now in critical condition?
As far as I know, some of the patients are in critical condition. At the time we transported I believe, again, it was 22 patients from the scene. I believe 6 of them were initially at least listed as critical.
Dr. Pfeiffer, the 4 patients that you have at your hospital, again, what kind of shape are they in now?
All of them are out of the OR. All 4 of them were in the OR at one point. 2 of them have gone up to our multi-trauma unit, which is a trauma-specific unit, but it is generally considered a floor unit. It is not an intensive care unit. They are listed as being at least not critical. The other 2 individuals are both in the intensive care unit. Both of them very clearly are critical.
Now, what kind of wounds do they have? Gunshot or shrapnel wounds?
The two that are critical appear to have gunshot wounds. The two that are in the multi-trauma unit, the one definitely had some gunshot wounds. The other one appeared to have more shrapnel-like injuries.
All right, Dr. Pfeiffer and Mr. Pessimir, thank you both very much indeed. I appreciate it. I know it's been a long, hard day for the two of you also. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
In a moment, that other story, more NATO airstrikes in Yugoslavia, and we'll be checking in live with ABC's Morton Dean in Belgrade.
If you could pay the same low rate for your calls, you'd change forever the way you communicate. Introducing AT&T Personal Network. Now a call from your wireless phone is like a call from your kitchen phone. A call from the airport is like a call from the backyard. Because for $29.99 a month, your calls, even wireless, are just 10 cents a minute. Call 1-800-4ATT now or visit our website. AT&T Personal Network. 10 cents a minute, no matter how you call. Call 1-800-4ATT now.
You enter the financial world in search of a secure future. Instead, you find chaos and confusion. 9,000 companies to invest in.
Welcome to Market Mania!
10,000 mutual funds to choose from. Bonds, T-bills, commodities, precious metals. With new and unfamiliar choices emerging every day. The possibilities are overwhelming. Fortunately, there is a beacon in this complex world. An experienced partner who for half a century has helped tens of thousands of individuals and families find comfort instead of confusion. Come to the mountain called First Union. Or if you prefer, the mountain will come to you.
She was queen of the entire world until she killed herself with a snake. Cleopatra. ABC makes history Sunday, May 23rd.
My grandfather was born a slave, but both he and my grandmother went to college and became teachers. As you can imagine, the power of education was made very clear to me. So with the help of the college fund, I went to college. It prepared me for graduate school and other challenges, like being married to this guy.
Help young people reach their potential. A mind is a terrible thing to waste. Please support the college fund. What do you mean challenge?
What you see here is not a man who's disabled, but a man who's simply dad. Give the power to overcome. Give to Easter Seals.
I'd like to warn our affiliates we're going to be going just a little bit over, and I do mean just a few seconds. There has been a major explosion in Belgrade tonight as the headquarters of Slobodan Milosevic's Socialist Party were rocked by NATO bombs. ABC's Morton Dean was nearby. He joins us now live from Belgrade. Mort, what were the targets tonight beyond that, and what happened to that building?
Well, Ted, there have been a number of targets around Serbia, including in the second largest city, Novi Sad, about 50 miles from Belgrade, but this target certainly got everyone's attention here in the capital city. There were about 3 detonations about 3:15 in the morning, less than 3 hours ago. And not only is this a building where the president's political party is housed, but there's other propaganda value, I guess you might say a morale value as far as NATO is concerned, because there are 2 TV stations housed in the building, one owned by the Yugoslavian president's daughter, President Milosevic's daughter, Maria.
And I take it then that those 2 stations have been knocked off the air, but I also have the impression that there are other stations still on the air.
Well, those the two stations have been knocked on the air. There is another broadcast center about 5 miles from where this building is or was, and those stations are continuing to broadcast. Only one of the 2 stations is a national station, one of the 2 knocked off the air. It's principally a sports and entertainment station, although on occasion it does carry news, and it certainly does carry some of the anti-NATO propaganda that has upset some of the people back at NATO headquarters.
More just very quickly, we only have a few seconds left. Give us a sense of how morale seems to be in Belgrade these days.
Well, I think you, over the past week or so, you get the sense that people are tiring of all this, and this certainly is going to increase that problem for the people here. Just around the corner from where this fire is continuing to consume part of the building, there is a long line already formed. The sun has come up here, and pretty soon there will be the usual morning line of a mile or a mile and a half of cars and buses and trucks that are lining up to get gasoline, which is in very short supply. So I think morale here is suffering, and it really will suffer a blow from the attack on this particular building. Mordine, joining us live now from Belgrade. Thanks very much indeed. I'll be back in a moment.
Having one of your best days of the year? We are Sears Days.
Woke up this morning feeling fine. There's something special on my mind.
Sears Days, the very best things you love, are all on sale.
Oh yeah, something tells me I'm into something good.
The best, the sales, Sears Days. Don't miss it.
Tomorrow on Good Morning America, Charlie Gibson will be reporting from Littleton, Colorado, on the aftermath of the shooting at Columbine High School. That's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
Nightline is always on with abcnews.com. Now part of the Go Network. If you'd like a transcript or video cassette of this or any other edition of Nightline, please dial 1-800-CALL-ABC.
Nightline has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source. abcnews.com, now a part of the Go Network.
From ABC News, the latest on the Colorado high school shooting. Tomorrow, live reports on Good Morning America. How could it happen again? Then on World News Tonight, Peter Jennings reports from the scene of the tragedy. And on 2020 Wednesday, the stories behind the horror. Stay with ABC News.
Each piece of Oregon is remarkable and unique. Its people and places join together for a perfect fit. To help continue this legacy, Oregon's lottery has returned over $2 billion to support our most valuable resources, our economy, our schools, and our environment. Lottery dollars are working everywhere to help keep Oregon feeling like Oregon. The Oregon Lottery. It does good things.
Attention RV buyers. Over $60 million of inventory is being moved from all over the United States to Salem-Kaiser Volcano Stadium for the largest RV liquidation sale in over a decade. That's motorhomes, trailers, and fifth wheels, both new and used, and all will be up for bid. Yes, you make your own bid. Flash! Don't be confused by local dealers trying to compete. They can't. There's only one spot, Salem-Kaiser Volcano Stadium. Free admission, free parking, and all trades are welcome. It's happening now!
20 different safety features designed for your protection. 21, if you count the price. Presenting the Volvo Sign and Drive program.
Baby advice from Penelope Leach.
Today at 9.